As I spoke about at the start of the show, the fight against the federal government's planned laws to target misinformation has stepped up this week, and criticism of their plans are growing. At the moment, it comes down to each social media platform to decide what is misinformation, and we know that they get it wrong again and again and again. And this is before the Albanese government decides to fine them millions of dollars if they don't take down content that's deemed misinformation. As you know, Facebook made value judgments about whether or not information posted about the origins of COVID-19 counted as misinformation. And it's a point that Senator Claire Chandler put to the chairwoman of ACMA, the Australian Communications and Media Authority, Nerida O'Loughlin, this week.
Did Facebook disclose to you, or Meta, I'll use the expression Facebook, disclose to you in your consultations with them that they had falsely described reporting that COVID-19 may have escaped from a Wuhan lab as misinformation and removed it from their platform?
I'm not quite sure, and I'm not quite sure whether those claims were contemporaneous with us doing that report.
I mean, it's pretty risky, isn't it, engaging with these social media companies when they have demonstrated that they're not always acting in good faith in deplatforming or shadow banning or hiding certain content on the basis that it's misinformation.
That was part of the intent of the voluntary code, to be able to put in place something where there was a common understanding on those platforms of what they should be assessing as misinformation or disinformation on their platforms, and a transparency about the measures that they would take to deal with those.
All right, let's bring in Liberal Senator Claire Chandler now. Claire, thank you very much for your time. Look, you also asked ACMA about how the social media platforms were actually in the best position to decide what is true and what is false, what is factual reporting and what is misinformation. What response did you get?
Well, look, I think the problem that we have here, Shari, is fundamentally that, even if we make a judgment call on whether or not social media platforms are very good at ascertaining what is true and what is false, and as you've highlighted, they're not always very good at making that determination. The only people I trust less than big tech to be able to figure that out is government themselves. And we're going to be in a situation, if this legislation passes, where social media companies are going to be, like you say, threatened with huge fines if they don't pull down misinformation or pull down information that they think the government might determine to be misinformation. So it has a really chilling effect on the ability for any of us to engage freely in public debate on social media when big tech companies, I think, will be preempting what government says and removing material before it even has the opportunity to trip this legislation.
Look, yeah, you're right. And as we know, Facebook has got it wrong. A lot of the media companies have got it wrong. And yet we heard Meta and Twitter say that these proposed laws would have a dangerous, a damaging, a chilling effect on free speech. So if you've got the social media companies worried about how this is going to be impact on free speech, then you know this is really a problem.
Absolutely, and I found it quite interesting that the only social media company that we heard from yesterday that was supportive of the bill was TikTok. I think that really tells you everything that you need to know about this. But absolutely, when you look at a social media company like Twitter that we know has not been a good corporate citizen in this regard, we know that Twitter was engaging directly with the US government to deplatform certain views at various points over the last few years. And even they are saying that this legislation is going to be problematic in terms of free speech and the ability to freely engage in debate on the internet. So incredibly concerning that the social media companies are offside as well. And like I said, I think the government has some serious work to do here to get this balance right.
And I mean, the point is no government entity, there can't be any fact checkers sitting there, fact checking investigative journalists. I mean, the very point of investigative journalism is you're bringing information into the public domain that you're not going to find a bureaucrat sitting there on Google, pressing enter. They can't find it.
That's exactly right. But what I think the bureaucrats are going to be doing is looking very carefully at debates that are occurring in social media spaces that might be in any way critical of the government and removing those points of view. And the reason that I say that is because this legislation has clear carve-outs for anything that is put on social media by the government, by a member of the government. They're not going to have this legislation apply to them. Whereas someone like myself, as a member of the opposition, any other member of the parliament, any other member of the public that chooses to criticise the government, well, that can be caught by this legislation.
Yeah, all right. Claire Chandler, thank you for raising that important issue in the Senate hearings this week.